welcome once again to Getting to the Top, where we interview transformational leaders about their leadership journey and how they've ended up where they are. Hopefully to inspire those of you who aspire towards leadership to follow in their footsteps. And for those of you on your own leadership journey already, hopefully to learn a thing or two that you can then share or implement on your own in your own leadership journey. So today I'm really excited to welcome Andrea Davis. Andrea, welcome to Getting to the Top.
Thank you.
All right, so I'd like you to introduce yourself and tell us about your current role and where you are.
Sure. So first of all, Racquel, thank you so much for having me. I know we've been trying to do this for a while. Always excited to share because I think it's, when we share, we help others grow. So again, Andrea Davis, I'm the country manager for DHL Trinidad and Tobago. I'm also part of the Caribbean board for DHL, so part of the Caribbean leadership team. Apart from that, I'm a director of the American Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And I also have a small business. I'm also an entrepreneur, a business that I started just around 11 years ago. And of course, it's just beginning to pick back up again. So I'm a director of that company as well. It's called Anai Caribbean. And that's just some of the projects that I work on. I have a couple other projects, NGOs. There was one, Bridge Caribbean, can't give full details now, but I'm certain that the Caribbean will hear of it very soon. And so yeah,
You're also an athlete and
yes, I played volleyball professionally. I played for Trinidad and Tobago. That was several years ago. I'm retired now. And that was an amazing journey. I always say that for me, that would have played a significant role in how I lead and a significant role in my leadership journey, right? Apart from volleyball, I love the outdoors. I hike, I mountain bike. Yes, I do mountain biking as well. Had a couple falls. But before we get up and we go again. Yeah. And I love the beach. I love to travel. I've been to 4 continents, over 55 countries. And yeah, COVID slowed me down a bit. So I'm getting back out there. And I believe that, we should, if I should put it this way, retirement should be every day. Right? Let me see if I can explain that. You often hear people say, I'll do this when I retire, right? And they work so hard for 60 or 65 years. And then at the end, when they retire is when they want to really enjoy traveling and enjoy all the finer things in life. Mm-hmm. And for me, I want to do that every day.
Right.
So you have to balance it. You have to mix it in. You work hard and you play harder. Right? Yeah. You balance your traveling and all those final things with your work.
You have to enjoy your life. You can't just wait until some future state that may never come.
Of course. I have for me, I consider it a pretty big family. I have 3 sisters, 2 brothers. I have a number of nieces and nephews. And they mean the world to me. They're everything to me, right? Very tight, very close-knit and supportive family as well.
Very good. So how did you start out? Like, what was your first job?
So my first job, I finished school at 16, right? Wrote CXC at 16. And my parents wanted me to go back and do A-levels. I was totally against that, because I felt that I could be doing something else. I felt that I needed to take responsibility for my life, right? I mean, at 16. So yeah, so I wanted to make money. And with that, I got a job in the school. I went to Arima Senior Comprehensive, by the way. And I played volleyball for the school.
Okay.
And there was, of course, at that time, there was White Up in the school. There was a White Up center in the school.
Explain what White Up is, because we have a lot of international listeners.
Yes. Oh, White Up. White Up is a youth training employment partnership program where they train young persons, you know, in different skills or employable skills. Yeah, so from typing and all these basic computer skills, etc. So I started working with White Up for a stipend because, of course, I couldn't be fully employed. I wasn't 18 yet. So I was working for a stipend. I can't remember the amount, but it was very little. But to me, it was a lot. And I did that.
So
I did that.
Just so that I have a sense as to why you were so independently minded and wanted to kind of launch out on your own in terms of are you one of the first children or one of the last children? What's your order of birth?
So I'm the first girl.
Okay.
I'm the first girl.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you felt very responsible very early.
Of course, of course, of course. And then it's, you know, I have sisters, and my sisters, their motto would always be, we want to be just like Drea, right? So the pressure was on. The pressure was on.
You had 3 girls looking up to you.
That's right. So the pressure was on. And I wanted to, you know, I played volleyball, and, you know, my family were from Sani Grande. And I played volleyball in Curep, La Jolla, which is probably about 45 minutes away, right? And my father also worked about 45 minutes away from home. My father, he worked with WASA as an estate police. Okay. Yeah. And for me, he would have to leave work, drive 45 minutes at home, and I'd finish practice in the night late and then drive back to pick me up and then drive back home. And I thought that was way too much, right? So I wanted to get to a point where I could have been responsible, you know, probably get my own car and drive myself around. So I did that. And from there, I got a job at Airline Caterers. At the time it's Cater Serve now, right? Which is Airline Caterers, as a general assistant. Okay. So I still have some habits from that job. So what that entails, we have all the cutlery, all the glasses, all the dishes, everything that goes onto the aircraft. Our job was to ensure that they were all clean, right? So I would hold the glasses up in the light, and if there's any marks, I'll make sure I wipe it off, right, and clean it. So even to the day, when I pick up a glass, I usually hold it up and look at it in the light. So,
I'm sure people are like, what is she doing?
Yeah. You know, and for me, that was exciting. So I started there as a general assistant, and then I moved into the bond, which is a custom bond, which is the area with all the alcohol and so on that goes onto the plane, same company. And then from there, I moved into a small courier company as a customer service supervisor. And then I became customer service manager. And then, of course, I moved to another company from then, a technology company, as a customer service and marketing manager. And then from there, I moved on to different industries, more or less in that same type of management role. And so for me, I think the progression was exciting, right? Because it started from, you know, of course, White Up doing the administrative stuff and then shining the glasses. And then I'm in a role where I'm looking at customer service, where I'm managing people, right? I started with small teams. And then I moved into different organizations. And then I had, you know, in one organization, my team was about 94 persons. Wow. So I was responsible for about 94 persons. And that for me, I loved it. I loved it. Because for me, I see leadership as an opportunity to build, right? To build and to grow people. My brand, my personal brand is centered around developing people, right? I don't believe that you should stay where you start. And, you know, with that, also respecting persons who want to stay where they are. Right?
Because not everybody, you know, everybody's sort of motivation and what career means to them. It's a very individual thing. So you're going to have to realize that there's some people who aspire to leadership, and we want to make sure and support those people. But there are other people who are comfortable where they are, and that's okay too, because they have other things happening in their lives that can be quite fulfilling. But what we don't want is for people to choose to stay where they are out of default, or because they believe they don't have any other options.
Correct. So I'll tell you, I have right now at DHL, our DHL is very big on succession planning, right? And employee growth and development. So we're always looking at, okay, what is the next step for you? In 1 to 2 years, where should you be? Where could you go? How could you improve? You know, and I go through that process with all my staff, right? In terms of, okay, where are we now? Everyone has a personal development plan, right? That's mandatory.
Right.
And I do have some staff that say, for example, some of my couriers, they've said to me, listen, I know you all think I have all this potential and I could do this and I can do that, but I love being a courier.
Okay.
I don't want to do anything else. I love meeting customers. I love talking to customers. I love serving customers. I love being out there.
Yeah.
And for me, I am no longer going to try to force you to move into a different role or different level. What I'm going to do is tell you, well, here's what. What are the tools, or what can we do to help you become a better courier?
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Because there's so many times that we force people into sort of coming out of a role where they're happy and into management, which is a completely different skill set. To be a good employee and to be a good manager require different things. And if it isn't something that fulfills you, then it can be a bit of a challenge. However, to disagree a little bit is, I feel like it often, and not only, but it often happens to women that they are in a position and very happy and delighted to be a contributor and not necessarily a leader. And I think what we're learning about leadership is that quiet quality of contentment, but being sort of a workhorse and being very steady makes for excellent leaders. And until we inspire more diverse leaders, we're not going to have better outcomes. We're not going to go from good to great. We're going to stay in this kind of vacillating position that we're in. And we have to now inspire different kinds of leaders, people who don't see leaders that look like them, whether it is that they're shy or they're introverted or they're black or they're women or whatever it is that we're not seeing in leadership. There should be an opportunity to have that kind of leadership, because it's where the best results are going to be, where we have different kinds of people.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And I'll tell you, I was probably there at some point in my leadership journey, right? Because there's a point where I'm thinking, okay, you know what? I don't curse and scream, and I don't bawl at people. I don't shout at people. I don't do certain things, you know, and I ask myself, you know, will that be sufficient? Will that be good enough? But I think it's coming back to the realization that whatever you are, that unique aspect of you, right, is what somebody is looking for, is what can make the difference, right? And for me, it was just learning to accept and appreciate that my uniqueness is valued, right? And so there's no, because you're an empath, you cannot be a good leader, right? Or because you're compassionate, or because you may appear soft, you cannot be a good leader. When I started my role here, this is a very male-dominated industry. And one of the comments I heard is that it's real hard for a woman in here, you know, because you have to be tough. Yeah, it's men you're working with, you know. Yeah. And it was like, good luck with that. And I thought to myself,
I remember the great excitement and you know, I remember it was quite a coup when you ended up leading DHL.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I didn't see me being a female, right, hindering or affecting how I lead. Right? I do believe in leading with love. I do believe in leading the way you want to be led, right? And I think that people respect and appreciate people that respect them, that show them some sort of compassion.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean to say because you're compassionate, you cannot be firm, right? You do it with respect. Yeah.
So tell me about this leading with love concept. Where did you get that?
So it's something that I've had for years. It's something that I've, and probably because I've had these little sisters, right? And I've always been their leader. Let's put it that way. I've always been their leader, right? And for me, it is dealing with them in a compassionate manner, right? And that is exactly how I developed my own leadership. I mean, sometimes I have employees that would come and they would sit. I put a couch in my office so they can sit, put your foot up, relax yourself, and just talk, just share. Because I think that, you know, when you show persons that level of compassion, care, love, they open up more, right? And it builds relationships. So I do believe that when you lead with love, there's so much benefits to that.
Yeah.
And again, understanding there is still a line, right? A line of respect. There are still boundaries, because in love, there's also boundaries. Of
course. Right? You don't have good love if you don't have good boundary management.
Correct.
Yeah. Because then it's just, you know, a complete another breakdown of what needs to happen. All right. So you come into this new role. Tell me about because you were quite young coming into this role as well. So I think it was a bit of a surprise to the market when you came into this role, leading DHL, you know, the largest in the world logistics company in the world. And here is this young woman coming in to lead this organization that looks less like most of the staff than others. You're female, you're younger. You know, what was that like? How did you get started in this role?
So for me, I think one of my gifts is being able to connect with others and being able to build relationships. And within my first month, or as I got started, one of the things I did was look to see, okay, so who can I reach out to? Who could I lean on? How could I build these relationships? And I think he is now vice president of sales for the Americas. And I reached out to him. And he said to me, all right, get this book. And he told me to get this book, 30, 60, 90. It's, I think I still have it on my desk. Just getting it. It's, I still review. It's this book.
Oh, fabulous.
Yeah. The first 30, 60, 90. He said, get that book. Read that book, right? If you have any questions or you need any support, reach out to me. And Racquel, that's how I did it. I did it based on getting support. Every regional meeting I've gone to, I'm the only female.
Yeah.
I'm the only female out of, you know, all the country managers.
Yeah.
Right. And I would be standing there with 9 men. And at the end of the day, I was able to get their support.
Yeah.
Right. And still, you know, stand strong and grow within the business.
Yeah.
So for me, it's building a network, you know, learning to open up, right? Learning to be vulnerable. I'm not going to come in and pretend, no, that's okay. I am a strong woman. I've learned everything. I've led other organizations and I've done X, Y, Z. No, I'm coming in and if I don't know something, I will ask.
Yeah.
Right? You cannot be afraid to be vulnerable. So that was it for me. Ask questions.
Ask questions.
Don't come in thinking that you're coming in as a leader. So you know what? I'm not asking you questions, right? I know it already. That is going to get you in trouble. And my staff, I always tell them, I am here to learn, right? They're my teacher. I am here to learn, even now.
Yeah. So other than reading that book, what's the best advice you've been given in any of your roles?
What's the best advice I've been given? God, there's so many that's going through my head, right?
Okay.
Yeah. well, I remember our CEO, the American CEO telling me, no, let me go to my leadership mentor. And that, guys, it's very important to have a coach or a mentor for different aspects of your life, right? And, you know, he told me, he would always say, focus on your HPAs. What is an HPA? High payoff activities. Focus on your HPAs. And that stuck with me. Yeah. Right. And yes. And even coming into DHL, one of the, I don't want to say a slogan, but one of the terms we use here is control your controllables. And that is something that I have taken into my personal life, recognizing that I cannot control everything. And I have to recognize those things that I can control and ensure that I control it to the best that I can. Yeah. And the things that I cannot control, either let it go or find a way, find somebody else who can do it, but you cannot spend time focusing on the things that you cannot control.
Yeah. Give me an example. Give me an example of a situation where you had to focus on one of your HPAs, where you're like, okay, I need to make a choice between two things, and here's a high payoff activity. Just to give our listeners an example.
Well, my high payoff activities have always been bringing the money, right? Because in all my other jobs, for example, I had sales, right? I was sales manager. And now as the country manager, I'm responsible for the P&L of the entire country, right? So revenue is important to me. Right. So that's always a high payoff activity. And sometimes there's that balance coming down to the end of the month, or you're looking at your numbers on a quarterly basis, etc. And then there's that balance with, okay, do I do activities related to, let's just say, employee engagement and HR, because employee engagement is also an area of the business that is highly focused on. Yeah. Right. Or do I focus on what is going to help me drive and gain that revenue this month, right? Or this quarter? And that's always, it's always a balancing act. Yeah. And for me, I always say, okay, you know what? Let's drive, let's get the revenue. Focus on getting the revenue. When we get the revenue, we're going to do some fun things and we're going to drive engagement. Yeah. And yeah. And just to add, Racquel, why that has also worked for me, it's because you have to also be as open and as honest and as transparent as possible with your people. Yeah. So I have shared with my staff how we make money, when we make profits, what is required to make profits, and even what is profit, right? Because we could make the revenue and then spend the revenue, and then there's nothing balanced, right?
Exactly, so exactly. You can make the revenue and make a loss. And a lot of people don't understand that. And you know, the faster you make revenue, if it's not profitable, the quicker you end up in a bad situation. So I think, correct. So what inspired you to be that transparent? Because I think a lot of organizations aren't necessarily that transparent, and because they feel like there's inherent risk in being open about this is how we make the money or this is how we get the numbers.
So I do believe that when you're transparent, I do believe that when you're open and you share, you get buy-in. Yeah. Right. So you get buy-in. And I'll tell you, I remember in my first year, I would have stood in front of a town hall with my staff, every single one at every single level. And I shared with them, simple as that. I said, guys, listen, if we make $1,000, right? Sales team go out there and they bring in $1,000 in revenue. But then let's just say as a courier, you go out and you deliver a package, forget to collect the cash, customer say they're not paying again, or you get the vehicle get bounced and damaged and we have to send to repairs, you know, and different things like that. And that cost us $1,000. Then did we make any profits? Right. And the answer across the room was, well, no, right? So that's as granular as that I will get with them, right? You know, and from that, what you get is they saying, nah, boy, this can't work, you know. So at the end of the day, they are more cautious in terms of how they drive and what they do, right? They ensure that they don't make the level of errors and mistakes as possible, right? And that is happening across all departments. So every department is so sensitive that whatever they do can affect, right, the success of the business.
Sure, and but it's one thing for people to know and understand. It's another thing for people to care. How do you get people to care?
By caring for them.
Okay. All right. So you're caring about them directly pays back in dividends, in that when you care about them, they care about the organization.
That's right. You take care of your people and they will take care of the business.
Okay. All right, good. And so where did you get that? Where on the journey did that come to you as something that you needed to focus on?
I have no idea.
I like that. The honesty. Like, listen, I don't remember.
I really have no idea, because I mean, if I were to think about it, that my previous employment, previous organizations, it would have been the same. I've always, thought about how could I make my staff life better? How could I, take them from one step to the next? So I can't say at what point, it became a thing, but I think it's just, I lead the way I would want to be led.
Okay. So tell me now, because you sound like the sort of quintessential leader, just, leading with love, empathy, caring about people, being transparent, being open. Tell me about a time you made a mistake, because otherwise I won't believe you're human.
Oh no, I've made mistakes. I've made mistakes, not just with staff. In my first year, I'll tell you, that was the biggest mistake. Can't tell you everything, but in my first year, I came in, and of course, my leadership style is basically to learn from the persons that I'm working with, right? And I mean, I'm coming in new. I'm coming into an organization, right? And an industry that I'm not familiar with, right? And one of the things during that year, I also felt ill. I was ill for a while. And so I had to work from home for a bit. And during that time, it robbed me of getting to know each of my staff individually, right? And I clearly remember sending out emails, right, to all of them. That's my senior staff, my senior team. And the email was sort of general. And I think some would have taken it personally, or in a manner where I'm thinking, oh, no, what everybody thinks the same way. They would all read it the same way. And that didn't happen.
Right. And
for me, that was a mistake. That was a big mistake, because it created a rift. It created a separation. It created, that sort of tug and pulling between the team. And so when I came back out, I fixed my errors. Nothing's wrong with making mistakes. We're human and we do. But what happened after that is important. So when I came back out, again, being the person that I am, I said, guys, listen, we went to a coffee shop away from the office, and we sat there and we had an open conversation.
Right.
That conversation was, listen, me being open about what happened and how I felt about it, and they all being open about what they expect from me and how they felt about the situation. We pulled that together and we were done and we moved forward.
Okay.
So I do make mistakes, but I don't leave it, and pretend it didn't happen. You deal with your mistakes. Yeah.
So one of the things that I've been reading about is that one of many key differences between how women lead and how men lead is that when women make mistakes, we ruminate on it and we kind of play it over and over in our heads, and we, obsess about mistakes, whereas men, whether they acknowledge it or they don't acknowledge it, they move on. Do you ruminate, or do you move on? And how do you prevent yourself from sort of getting stuck in a spiral?
So yeah, I move on.
Okay. Oh, nice.
I move on because I don't have enough space in my brain to keep all those, to keep the mistakes and to keep marinating it, because it just stays there.
Yeah.
And that's why I would deal with it You know, if something happens, if it's with an individual, if I need to clarify, I would do that. I would clear it up so that we can move forward. Right? Because once it's there, trust me, there is no moving forward. There's only pretending that you're moving forward. So I prefer to deal with it and move on.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Too many exciting
and again, you probably do just brain space. Can't continue to ruminate on this. Moving on.
Yeah. But you see, Racquel, and I remember saying in the earlier part that my days in sports would have helped, right? Or would have had some sort of influence on how I lead.
Yeah.
And that's it. You play volleyball and you make errors, you make mistakes, you serve out, you miss the ball. And you know what? That's split seconds. You don't have time to sit down and think, oh my gosh, that ball just went outside. No, because the next ball is coming to you, right? So you have to
fabulous analogy.
Moving. Yeah, you have to keep moving.
Wonderful. I love it. I love it. And what a great and inspiring note to end on. Andrea, thank you so much. I mean, this has been, I met you years ago when you were just coming into DHL, and it just seems like such a long time ago, but what a breath of fresh air you've been for the organization, and just as you know, a new crop of leaders that we're able to have, and one that inspires and creates hope and optimism and possibilities for so many people. So thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. I hope you learned something today. I loved the concept of let's just move on, and if you make a mistake, just deal with it and lead with love. You know, I think one thing that we can't ever do enough of is to love, including loving with boundaries. But thank you so much for joining us. And if you, please, if you've enjoyed this episode, please give us a thumbs up. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed already, and share with a friend so that we can inspire different kinds of leaders to get the best possible result out of our world. Thank you all so much. Goodbye.